Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, hi.
How are you guys doing? Good. Last one before lunch.
Let's go.
We are super excited to be here, and we're super excited to ask you a question, which is how excited are you about the arrival of generative AI tools in the design space? Just raise your hands if you're excited.
Who is excited?
Who's excited?
Oh,
Ooh.
wow.
Okay. Who's concerned?
Oh, less people. Who is excited and concerned? Ah, very good.
Okay. Okay. So are we. We're excited and concerned, and that's the gist of our talk today. So 2 months ago, you can see that the fabulous organizers of this conference, which, by the way, small round of applause for the organizers.
Thank you.
They asked us all on LinkedIn if we're feeling that we design better as humans or if AI designs better. You can see here around 15% feel it's AI, 85% or so feel it's humans. Our TLDR today is it's both together, and that's what we hope you walk away with, some tips and tricks on designing better with AI, because we believe it's here to stay. There's been a lot of buzz. If you remember, at the end of last year, the narrative was doomsday, oh my God, AI is coming for our jobs, we should all freak out. Fast forward to October 2023, and I think we've all moved past that. But the narrative is still the question rather, is how do we adopt these tools in a way that's mindful and meaningful in our design practice?
So besides the buzz, right, there are a lot of numbers going around, a lot of research is going on in the industry. And this is one figure that we found interesting. 30% of work hours could be automated by 2030, quite impressive. But what does this actually mean? Because we also hear that not a lot of jobs can be fully automated. So this would rather mean that, okay, our jobs will change, but will not be replaced at first. So to start off, we have a little experiment prepared that I want to show you now. So apparently, this is us, but it's not, right? So this is what Midjourney thinks we look like, and you might know Midjourney. It's an image generation AI tool, and it uses prompts to generate images. And this is the prompt we used: a photo of Elif and Julian working in the Bitpanda office. And at first sight, you know, it looks great. We look great. It could be worse, but also there are a couple of issues here, right? So first of all, the most obvious one, it's wrong, because these people are not us. And Midjourney doesn't tell us that, it just has a lot of assumptions to come up with this image. And one assumption is we're both below 40, we're both white, we are working in this Berlin-style office. So it's not diverse, it's biased. And also if you look at some of the details here, some of the details are a bit weird. So the bottom right, here is a device. It looks very old school. Could be like a calculator or like a BlackBerry or something. And then something is also wrong with her fingers a little bit. So it's a great start, but with some problems, right?
So we want to take a step back and ask ourselves, or remind ourselves rather, what are we trying to do as designers? If we're going to adopt AI tools in the workflow that we are in, we need to remember what we're actually doing. Broadly defined, and I know that there are people here from different industries, mostly fintechs, but some from other spaces, and designers are working across anyway. So wherever you are, we're always trying to solve problems for people in the real world, right? Someone's trying to do something. They're trying to get their medicine prescription fulfilled, they're trying to order lunch, they're trying to pay their rent, they're trying to do something. If we want to think about generative AI tools as having their own objectives, which is a weird thing to think, but they're not really trying to solve a problem, right? They're trying to predict something. They're trying to come up with something that seems sensible or plausible, unless we prompt it to do something else. Where we're excited is thinking about the sweet spot moving forward. So these tools are advancing at an incredible pace. We're all very excited about it, or we're excited and concerned. Where we see some potential is when we think about computers that can think in the future, potentially, in which case we could be solving problems for people with computers that think. And that's really exciting. But in order to be part of that change, we need to be part of that change. So our call today is also partly an encouragement to start experimenting with these tools so that we don't get left behind as design professionals.
So now let's get more practical a little bit. So who in the audience uses AI tools at the moment in their daily design work? Okay, we see a couple of hands here. We also do that, so we want to share some of these examples. There are a lot of tools, there are a lot of use cases out there. And for us, it made sense to come up with 3 categories where these use cases can be more or less clustered in. So one is jump-starting, the other one is creating variants, and the third one is consolidating. The question is now when to do what. So you might know the double diamond, right? It's always proven to be a good model for an ideal design process, starting with discovery, research, then kicking off a design brief, diverging, going wild, and then trimming it down to a solution that works. So when using AI tools, the jump-starting use cases, they always work great in these diverging moments of collecting insights, exploration. The variants are great in these moments of maximum divergency, where you really go ideate. And then the consolidating is always great when you trim it down. But what's important to say here also is that you don't feel limited to try out a lot of different stuff, right? So oftentimes we think that AI tools just produce visual artifacts or text artifacts, but it can also be a consultant. You can ask ChatGPT, okay, I have the following problem. What workshop would work for this problem? And then it gives you some recommendations. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And what's most interesting is to actually think about what can I automate that is more boring, because then I have time for the really cool stuff and free up my time for the creative stuff. Now let's go through the examples. We have one each for each category, starting with our user profile. This is how our user profile looks like in the Bitpanda app. And how did we get there? So first of all, we asked ChatGPT to come up with an information architecture that's state-of-the-art, following the standards, following the patterns in the industry, with all these elements that we have there, right? Name, citizenship, transaction history, 2FA. It clustered it. We let it generate an HTML based on this structure. And as you can see on the right, this is the final design in Figma. It's obviously done manually. But if we compare the second and the third image, from a visual design perspective, it's very different, but from a structure, it looks pretty similar. So what do we learn from that? So AI is really great when you want to create something that is ordinary, that's following the standards, that is also sometimes average, right? And it doesn't work really well at the moment, at least we have seen a lot of these cases, when you want to create something outstanding, something extraordinary, something beyond the standards, because it connects all the data that's there and puts it together. And oftentimes we've seen very boring and uninspirational stuff generated when you want to create something new.
The next example is from this variant phase, so when you're diverging, trying to come up with as many ideas as possible. As the content designer at Bitpanda, I spend quite some time thinking about the words that are present in our app, and I've been playing around with a Figma plugin called Frontitude. Here you can see that I'm trying to come up with different ways to say the same thing on a splash screen. But what it starts with is you. You always have to know what the message is or what the problem is that you're trying to solve. What does this screen need to say? What does this flow need to do? What's the thing someone's here for? Then you can have some fun. You can ask it to come up with use different tones, or tell it to say something or not say something. So customizing the prompt is actually pretty fun. What's even more fun, though, is looking at the suggestions that it gives and picking and choosing pieces of that and coming up with your suggestions in the end. So it's a mix of both. And my takeaway from this for you all is that you still need to be in love with the problem, right? You still have to know what the message is of the screen or whatever it is that you're designing. You still have to understand if the suggestions that the tool you're using and the tools come and go, if it actually addresses the problem, right? Does it actually solve this case? Our last example comes from consolidating. So this is where you're trying to come back down, figure something out, pass something on. We asked another Figma plugin called Coco.ai to come up with an affinity diagram for us. And this is pretty amazing and pretty terrifying. You just take the raw data. So in this example, you can see some interviews that we did. I just copy pasted the notes from the interview straight into the plugin, and I asked it to create an affinity diagram for me. Anyone here who's done any research knows that this is like an hours-long, days-long, weeks-long process, depending on how much data you've collected, how many stakeholders you have. And boom, it's right there. On the one hand, that sounds awesome, and on the other hand, like I said, it's terrifying, because if you're in love with the problem, you also have to be in love with the data. And if you're just asking this thing to just boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you don't really know what it's saying, right? Is it actually useful? Can you actually craft a how might we from this that you're going to pass on to a product designer, or write your report now based on it, or whatever you need the research to do next? It's a question mark. So our advice here is be mindful when it comes to these kinds of tools, or this moment rather, in the design process, because you still need to get your hands messy with the data.
Now, what does all of that mean for the future? And that's one of the key interesting things also here. So the following question is for us interesting to look at. Would AI actually have invented the iPhone? And our current answer is no, because AI is really good at looking out, connecting all the dots of the big data it has access to, but then it combines it to more or less something similar also. And when the iPhone was launched, it was completely new. It was outside of anything existing. Nobody knew that they would need this device, right? And now, looking a bit more in detail, who is actually better at what, we can say at the moment, humans are really better at understanding and relating information, contextualizing stuff with emotional intelligence, adapting to new solutions, thinking out of the box, relating stuff with each other. And AI is really great at operating in this predefined setup, being really fast, completely rational, storing and recalling information, but also ignoring ethical conventions. So in one word, this would be empathy for humans and efficiency and precision for AI. Now, looking further in the future, or also at the current development, speed of development of these tools, it's rather impressive, right? It's exponential, kind of. So we can assume that the efficiency will increase and the complexity will decrease. So we will have tools that are actually really easy to use and really efficient, but would that automatically mean that that's good design? And we don't think so, because,
Yeah, if you put in poop, you can expect to get it back out.
So to summarize, right, we all know, okay, the tools are here, now is the time to embrace AI. So when you experiment with these tools, try to go beyond the standard, right? Try to understand the model and its constraints, because every model that you use, every tool has a model and constraints. And you need to find a good balance of when do I rely on human creativity versus when do I trust an AI to come up with a good output for me. And then the output you get, always validate it and challenge it. Think about the long-term impact. Does it really solve my problem? Is it maybe biased? Does it understand all the context? Is it the best result I can get, or is it just a short-term solution that I can quickly throw out? And then when iterating, ultimately the goal is we need to reduce the friction of AI and us as designers, close the gap and build a relationship, right, with these tools, because we are in the driver's seat and the world of design will be ever evolving. There will be a new tool around the corner every other day, every other year that we use. And we are part of the change. So if we are good at that, being part of the change with AI, we as designers will also define how AI will change the world of technology and design. Thank you very much. Time for questions.
Super insightful. I even saved a few tools for myself to try out. Yeah, so let's see if we have questions in the audience for this super hot topic. And I see you, please. Yeah, Octavio, yeah.
Hey, thank you for this great keynote. Would you held the same speech in 10 years again?
10 years ago, or in 10 years?
In 10 years?
In 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good question, because
That's-
if
yeah.
if you see the speed of
yes.
development, right, we would probably have a difference in where are humans better at and where is AI better at, because it changes, right? It gets better. But what always remains probably a key message is that the interaction between humans is really important. Yeah, this can never go away, and it will be even more important now in the future and in 10 years.
And also, I think the essence of what we're saying is stay curious, like stay open, but be exploring, be trying these things. So that's something that designers have always needed, right? Whether that's 10 years ago with a different tool or in 10 years with a totally different tool again. I think we would give the same talk. The words or the letters AI just might not be there. It'll be something else.
Okay, let's see.
Let's
keep
see.
track in 10 years.
I'll see you, maybe 2033.
Okay, so let's check from our online audience. In 5 years, again, let's talk about the future. I mean, which part of the design process will become irrelevant due to AI? Whew.
It's hard to say, but what I would really aim for is to automate the stuff which currently is a bit like anyway repetitive, right? It's stuff that you may use a lot of time, but it's actually not interesting. So if we manage to free up this kind of pile of laundry, right, that is like not
But what
really.
is it for you?
For me, maybe sometimes it's documentation, or sometimes it's naming all the things correctly and doing a handover to developers and describing every single state of every single component, and so that's maybe something that would be super cool if we can automate that more.
Questions from the audience? Okay, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. How do you personally feel about labeling AI content? So maybe also to contribute to AI literacy?
You mean labeling content that was created by AI?
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So make clear that it was created by AI?
Yeah.
I think in the context of social media, it will be very important, at least that's my personal opinion, because in the internet overall, it's already hard to say what's real and what's not real, right? So I think it's important to do that, to also protect our values at some point. Yeah.
I think it depends what the content is. I'm not so sure, like for example, in the example I showed here of the splash screens, I'm not so sure it makes a difference to someone if it says that it was generated partly through an AI plugin or not. But I do think that there are other contexts where it's critical, right?
Another question from online audience. Do you use, or maybe you try, any AI tool for user research or user testing? Have you seen anything?
It's interesting. We currently don't use one for testing, because for testing we really rely on real people. But I have seen some things like simulating user tests, which could be very interesting, right? You simulate the test with an AI. But then the question is always like, what data does this AI has access to? Does it understand the context of our users?
Yeah.
Maybe not yet.
And at which point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, another question on the back, please.
Thank you for the sober, exciting, concerned talk. I think this relates to the previous question about the emoji, like poop in, poop out. Like, how bad is poop anyways, maybe, is my question? Or like, with the UX, with the testing, if it's close enough, or it doesn't smell that bad, like, why would we not? Do you have any a practical answer to that?
Practical, yeah.
I mean, it depends. So you were just mentioning, or we were just talking about UX research. I was also reading about some tools that generate personas for you. I have not played with any of those, but that's poop that I feel like I don't want to be near, right? I don't want to be near like faux personas. I don't want to be working for an organization that wants to design something based on fake people. So I don't know. That's a good question. I could imagine that there's poop that's less smelly. I don't know.
I mean, one thing which is happening already, right? That everything starts to look the same. And this is also a bit related to this, right? We look out at the competitors, at the industry. We try to do everything like others, and all the apps somehow look so much similar. So the question is, if the big data is all the average, then to stand out, you need to actually ignore some of this big data, right? And that might be the poop, but sometimes the big data for a given problem is also good, and it's basically you do a benchmark maybe, or you do a comparison, or you get inspiration and let some sparks fly to get inspired to kickstart an idea, and then you do it yourself as a human again, right? It's like, at what part of the process do I use AI, and for what do I use it, and what do I challenge, and where do I trust it? Yeah.
Let's take one last question from the audience. You see? Yeah, please, not about poop, so...
Batsy. Batsy, my man.
Time has come, Elif.
Oh, man.
Cool. Yeah. So my question is around data privacy and
no.
security.
Well, maybe it's better about poop.
How did you guys get permission to use these tools and put in companies' data into them?
Yeah, there are always guardrails, right? In any company, they are allowed to use these tools. Always important is to make anything anonymous, right? Any personal data should not be pasted into any AI, and also any confidential data obviously will not be pasted. So if you want to use AI for something that is super confidential at the moment, I have no idea how to do that, at least with the public available tools. Yeah. So we always make sure not to paste anything which is personal or related to any personal data.
There is kind of a weird gray zone, though. So like with the writing plugin, where those kind of tools are moving towards is you'll bake your product style writing guide or any kind of brand book that your organization has straight in there. And that's kind of a gray zone, right? Because some companies are very open and excited, like MailChimp publishes their brand book. It's out there. You can look at it and reference it. And others, like Bitpanda, I've never actually really asked anyone. There's nothing in there that's private per se. There's nothing in there that identifies anybody. But on the other hand, it's also not on our website. So where does it sit?
Yeah, it's a very tricky balance. Okay, we can discuss it in one of our networking breaks. I mean, this topic is super important and interesting. Thank you so much. Please give it up to Julian and Elif.